cough, so please bear with me. I've got plenty of water, so should be okay. Right, okay, we'll move into the meeting. Can I just say before we commence, there's no intentions of any fire alarm this evening, so or any tests or anything. So if you do hear the alarm, if you could exit by the nearest exit and go down the stairs, please. And as I said, please make sure your phones are switched off. We will be filming. You can probably see we're filming. But if any members of the public who are speaking on any issue this evening don't wish to be filmed, if they let Katie know at the end here, and she will make sure they're not filmed. Everybody else, we're all in it. Okay, so we'll start by asking, are there any declarations of interest this evening?
Sure.
Yeah, Steve?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare a personal interest as I'm the ward councillor for this ward, and I'll be speaking against item 11. Thank you.
Wendy? Wendy?
I have an interest. Can you speak up? I've got an interest because I have a relative that attends the school.
Okay, thank you. Have we any apologies for absence? Apologies, Val.
I have a personal interest in item 11.
Okay, is that an interest whereby you won't be able to take part in the debate?
Indeed.
Okay. Can I just say as well, it's as well for... Just a second. Sorry, just a second. Before we move any further and start talking, it is difficult for members of the public to hear us. The way the PA system is designed in here isn't designed, it's not a modern system. It was put in the 70s. It isn't the best. And what there are, just for the benefit of the members, the little speakers in the desk, and there's nothing out there. So can I ask members to try and speak up so we can be heard? Okay, Councillor Gloucester.
Personal interest in Crompton House, as my daughter attends a school and my husband's a governor.
Will you be leaving during the debate? Okay, thank you. Any more declarations of interest before we move to absences? No? Okay. Have we got any apologies for absence?
Received apologies from Councillor Brownridge and Councillor Fivian.
Okay, thank you. Public question time. We have received a public question. I'm not sure if the questioner's here this evening. Nevertheless, so what I'll do, I'll read out the question and read out the answer. The question is from a Mr. Tony Marsh. And the question is, are there any reasons, planning or otherwise, why the derelict sites on Durka have not been applied for regarding social housing? Why are the amenity spaces in Moorside, Shoulder preferred, when the areas on Durka are brownfield sites with excellent transport links, bus service, 81 goes right through it, and the metro is a short walk away? The area is clearly in need of regeneration. Why are these areas not prioritised instead of disposing of community-valued amenity spaces? So I've just read that as the questioner sent it. The answer is, it is a good question and probably relevant because it's a question that a lot of people do ask. With land being in so many different ownerships, planning applications of all types are submitted as and when the owner stroke developer wants to or is able to. So they do come in at random. In addition, when a planning application is submitted to a planning authority, there is a legal obligation on that authority to fully consider that application within a set time frame. A decision for each application will then be made on its own merits, as will the applications referred to in the question, and based on an assessment of current planning policy, balancing the relative economic, social and environmental benefits and negatives the scheme has. The question contends that none of the sites on Durka have had application for development. This is not so, as Keepmoat completed 106 units at Churchill Gardens in early 2016, Giddis Northern Counties a further 10 homes on Acre Lane, and First Choice Homes have started a further 51 affordable new homes on vacant land on Acre Lane earlier this year. And of course the former Crompton Mill site is now the park and ride for the Metrolink. With regards to other previous developed land, Oldham MBC has produced a brownfield register which lists land that has been previously developed subject to its availability, i.e. will the owner sell it? Its suitability, is it suitable for housing or industrial use, etc. And would development be available in the next 15 years? It's often asked why councils don't insist that these sites are used before others. And indeed, a previous government set a national target way back in '98 to ensure that 60% of all new homes were built on brownfield land. However, in 2011, the coalition government published a new draft planning policy framework which was designed to streamline the planning policy, improve clarity and unblock the system. The policy emphasis moved from one of encouraging encouraging building on brownfield land to one of sustainable growth. And so currently there is no legislation any local authority in the UK can use to insist or compel any developer to develop on any particular site. And here in 2018 the emphasis is very much on sustainable growth, and with the government's new housing targets more than doubling for many local authorities, including at Oldham MBCs, it is more and more difficult for local authorities to insist on what building goes on what site. I'll send that question and answer to the questioner right away. Okay, thank you. Moving on quickly to...
That answer in plain English. That didn't mean a thing to me, and I doubt it'll mean anything to the guy that's asked the question. Does that mean this authority are going to do it or not going to do it? That's what he's asking.
John, you might. That's a good point. In plain English, it means that we've got brownfield sites available, but we can't force developers to build there. We can't tell developers, you can build here first and then there. We can only deal with applicants as they come in. That's in essence what it means. I'll try and simplify that, John, when I send it, but I'm sure, I do know that this guy is an intelligent guy and I'm sure he'll understand what it's all about. Yes. Okay, John, we've got it's not shrouded in mystery, I can assure you, John. We need to move on. Just 1 second. Okay.
Do you want to get Shadab up here?
Yeah. We've just been advised that because Councillor Hewitt is going to speak on an application tonight, he can't take part in any of the debate at all. Have we got a volunteer for Vice Chair? Shadab? Please. While Shadab's coming up here, can we agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Oh, moved and seconded? Thank you. Okay. Just for the benefit of people who may not have been here before, we're going to, there's a little green sheet here that lists the planning applications, but we don't have to take it in that order. Indeed, because of the public interest in a couple of the issues this evening, we're first going to take item number 12, which is the Crompton House application. We've got one speaker, Councillor Murphy. I'll just explain that for any planning application, we're allowed 3 speakers. We're allowed a speaker in favour, we're allowed a speaker against, and we're allowed, a local councillor is allowed to speak. The speakers for and against are allowed 3 minutes, and we remind when they're 30 seconds. When that time's expired, the members of the planning committee may ask as many questions as they wish, or none at all, to that particular speaker. The ward councillor isn't limited to 3 minutes. It's at the chair's discretion how long they talk. So, with that in mind, can I just have the case officer to introduce this item to us? Graham? Oh, is it Tessa? Yeah, Tessa, if you'll introduce this item for us.
Planning consent is sought for an extension to the existing Crompton House Secondary School to provide additional accommodation for teaching facilities and improve the operation of the site, improving the configuration within the building itself. And it's to provide additional capacity for pupils up to 560 pupils in addition to the existing 1,120. The main issues to consider is the principle of the development, the design, landscaping and heritage, amenity and highways, impact on the highways. It is an existing secondary school with sixth form facilities within a residential area. In terms of the principle of the development, throughout Oldham there is a need for an increase in secondary school places in order to meet future demand, and this application would provide those additional teaching facilities on an existing school site in an accessible location within an urban area. The principle is considered acceptable in this case. In terms of assessing the impact of the development, it will involve a 3-storey teaching block, single-storey extension, multi-use games area, some demolition of an existing building, the Ballard building, and provision of additional car parking and new accesses. A 3-storey block is to be located to the rear of the site on top of an existing multi-use games area, just set in between the two properties on the top picture. The elevations are provided, which are to be brick. The external materials are to be brick with white UPVC windows. The scale will differ from the existing buildings, but given in the context of the site and given the kind of muted tones of the materials, the impact is considered acceptable from a visual point of view. To this section is the single-storey extension in this location to the rear of the Clegg building is to provide dining facilities for the school. The site to the far corner by the trees is the location for the replacement Mugga site, and suitable conditions regarding fencing and landscaping can be provided to ensure the impact is going to be acceptable. In terms of another aspect of it, the Ballard building, the more modern building shown in the picture behind the brick wall, is to be demolished, and in place is to provide car parking facilities. This will expose some of the rear of the building, but through some mitigation measures, such as painting the external rear elevations of the services and provision of trees and improvements to fencing, the impact will be acceptable in terms of the neighbouring listed buildings, and generally the Rochdale street scene should appear acceptable. The car parking will provide an additional 44 spaces, including 4 disabled persons bays. In addition to this car parking and access, a new access is to be created, new pedestrian access is to be created to the far end of the site off Grampian Way. And this will provide another 30 car parking spaces for staff of the school. In terms of the access, the local highway authority has assessed the scheme in terms of the potential impact on highway safety in detail. A transport assessment has been submitted, which includes all the likely effects. It is noted that the extension will increase the number of staff and pupils and have an impact on the highway. And as a result of this, suitable mitigation measures have been agreed upon, which will improve the existing situation and ensure that all users of the highway can operate in the area and safely at all times. As a result of these mitigation measures, it will improve the existing situation and ensure that all users of the highway can use the area, as I say, safely at all times. In regard to other matters, such as lighting, trees, ecology and energy and ground conditions, suitable conditions can be provided, and through conditions we can ensure suitable boundary treatment and landscaping. In conclusion, the proposal will provide school places for the future and improve education facilities whilst maintaining the provision of the existing sports facility of the Mugga. The design and the setting and design of the development and the mitigation measures proposed will avoid harmful impacts on the local amenity and local highways. And I'm happy to discuss further and take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we only have one speaker on this. It's Councillor Murphy. Councillor Murphy, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillors in Shore and Crompton are not opposed to the Crompton House school expansion plan if it means that local children will be accepted into the school and that the demand for school places in the area is met. That said, we are far from happy about the proposal. We've been kept in the dark until the very last minute and not been involved in the process, again until the last minute, something I raised in the council chamber. We only support this proposal from an educational point. Crompton House School has been allowed to get bigger and bigger over the years, which has created parking problems all around the area. Council has received regular complaints from local residents, especially when there's an event in the evenings. Councillors have met with the school to try and combat the situation, and it's just started to get better. But we're now faced with an extra 500 pupils attending the school. I can assure you, highways and council officers have spent a lot of time on this issue. It comes to something when Crompton House governors are asking local ward members for assistance with parking issues and the traffic that they've got there. Parents, carers and guardians are finding every nook and cranny to park up on many of the site entrances. Shortcuts to the school, you'll find vehicles waiting to pick up pupils. At the district executive, we've written to GMP's traffic PCSOs asking for assistance, but we've heard nothing as yet. I've never said this before, but because the council and the school have been working together, I believe this application will be passed regardless of what I say tonight, but I do need to make sure that residents' concerns are raised, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do that. Residents have told us, we've told residents that the best thing that they can do is make their voices heard very loud and clear, and I hope them concerns have been taken on board. I can assure you, your local councillors have been doing our bit, our end, so much so that I've been accused of having it in for the school. We are mindful that as part of the expansion, the opening up of the second entrance on Grampian Way during school hours will mean some residents will be disadvantaged. But by doing so, the current volume of highway pressures experienced on Rochdale Road should be greatly reduced. So using this application, it would be responsible if the mirroring of highway issues was allowed to take place, and the committee in the traffic section just allowed it to happen, leaving ward members and the traffic regulation order panel to pick up the pieces. I'm not satisfied enough has been done on the second entrance to tweak the entrance, and I've got especially concerns about the privacy to the residents of Crompton Gate, which is literally on the school's doorstep. Ward Council have asked the Chief Executive of Oldham Council if money can be set aside for future possible resident-only parking schemes. Parking restrictions such as double yellow lines, the white strip, access protection markings, and any sort of scheme that would help alleviate parking issues. We've also asked the Chief Executive to see what she can do with reference to making sure that Shore and Crompton residents' children are considered first before going out to the wider diocese And just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the locations where the children are coming in from, we've got children coming as far as Whitworth, Bamford, Wardle, Rosendale, Blakely and Wigan to this school. We've asked that the Grampian Way entrance is closed outside the school outside school hours, so it can't be used by users of the 3G football pitch, and it would be beyond helpful if members could turn that into a planning condition if it's not met in there. I'm now asking if there is something committee members can do to assist with schemes such as these sort of areas where motorist vehicles are encouraged to turn their engines off and not just leave them idling. I'm not sure what the Sunday title of that is, but again, it would be very helpful. Cabinet, it would be also beyond helpful if Cabinet could approve the funding for the expansion of the third bus bay, as reported in the traffic statement 10.3.3, bullet point 5. This was requested by the school, acknowledging that when children are picked up, the back end of the bus sticks out into the middle of the road on the third bus, and they requested that the bays are extended. That went to Cabinet and was not allowed. If members of the committee could put anything in to solve any of these concerns, I'm mindful that you've not got a magic wand and committee members are restricted, but residents are asking for your help, as ward members are. We don't believe there's any other option for this, and I think we need to make the best of a bad situation, and I believe some of these conditions, some of the proposals that we've suggested would help. The school has done what it has to statutorily, and I think it could do more. It's just sticking to what it has to do. And if the committee could help me out, that would be very helpful. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Murphy. Any questions? Yeah, Councillor Garth.
Thank you, Chair. So you mentioned that in terms of conditions, we could look at some work to do with the entrance to the gate and closing the entrance so they can't use 3G pitch. And you mentioned quite a bit about parking issues. The proposal says there's 44 additional spaces. Now, based on how the size of the school it was, and it's like nearly a 50% increase in the size of the school, with 44 additional spaces, which I'm presuming you don't think is enough. You mentioned about a residential parking scheme. Could you just tell us why you think that might be a benefit for the area?
Thank you. I am mindful that every school in Oldham, or indeed the country, suffers from parking issues. I get that. It's just that what I'm trying to mitigate is the opening up of the second entrance and mirroring the parking issues that we've got now up on the Rochdale Road entrance. As part of the traffic assessment, or whatever you want to call it, I think some of the pupils were encouraged to carry out a survey. Some of the questions that were asked were, where do you park your car? And this is sixth form students, and they're parking them on any street close to the school. School doesn't allow pupils to park on site, so the cars are being dumped anywhere where there is an entrance, a footpath, a ginnel to the school. So much so that sometimes the bus, the little circular that goes round the estate, struggles to get through because you get the double parking issue. Residents haven't asked for that as yet. What I've asked for is that money to be set aside in case that happens, because one of the things that I'm feared of is that this is approved tonight, and before you know it, in 6 months' time, residents are asking us for zonal schemes or parking permit schemes because it's got beyond a joke. The first point of contact for funding will be your local ward councillors, and I don't believe that is fair that we should be picking up the bill when we're already short of funding for some of the other projects. So it would be, like I said, beyond helpful if committee could assist me with that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's a big problem, isn't it? And it is a marked increase in students at this school, particularly the sixth form students bringing the cars as well. That's a problem not every school actually has. I don't think, well, I know the planning committee can't help you with the residents' parking, Dave. We can't. We would if we could, but we can't. It's not in our power to do that. But I'm sure as ward members and lobbying of the cabinet, you could. I'm interested in your... You said something about could we condition closing the second entrance. Could you just come back on that one?
Certainly. If IT or whoever it is could get the Crompton Gate entrance up, that's the one. If there was an option to zoom in there, the top picture, that'll do. I think we'll have to work with that one. So currently, the council approved a couple of years ago. Perfect. Thank you very much. That is actually quite good. It's an accurate reflection of the issue. So a couple of years ago, the planning committee approved a 3G football pitch, which is behind them sort of brick terrace properties. Part of that planning condition meant that the users of the 3G pitch, when use the Rochdale Road entrance, what I am fearful of is that because of the new opening for pupils during term time and during school opening times, it would be very easy for some of the users of the 3G pitch to access the pitch from that new entrance. What you can actually see there is all I can see in the proposed plans. So there's a gate there, and I'm not satisfied that enough privacy has been dealt with for the properties of 143, which is to the left, and number 38, Grampian Way, I think it is, the end property there. So I don't think enough work has been done with them residents to say, come on, what can we do to make the best of a bad situation? If you go, there's actually a small road there, and it leads to a block of about 8 flats called Crompton Gate. Some of the residents from there are already having issues with the football pitch. So what I was concerned about is the privacy from there. And I think a planning condition could be set by members, if they could, that stop that entrance being used by users of the 3G football pitch. So that would allow some privacy out of school opening times to mitigate the impact of this new proposal. I mean, don't forget, it's an extra 500 pupils. They're not going to rock up tomorrow, the projected numbers, but it's a 5-year pupil increase, and about 500 extra pupils go into this school.
Okay, thanks. I suppose, from my point of view, it's a bit of a double-edged sword closing that off, because there's also there'll be access there to the new car park, won't there? So people who might park on the roads to go to the 3G could now go onto the new car park. But as a ward member, do you still feel that closing off outside school is best for the area?
I do, Chair. It's worked so far. As part of the condition for the 3G mugger pitch, that was part of the condition, that users of the pitch, the school was quite vocal, the FA was quite vocal in saying, we can cope with users of the 3G pitch using the Rochdale Road entrance. they've got the facilities up at the top, the changing rooms, blah-de-blah. What I'm trying to do is to mitigate the privacy of them houses. All our ducks are in a row from the 3G application. What we would be doing is we would be throwing a bit of petrol on the flames and reopening old wounds if we were to add this, because it was one of the residents' concerns at the time that what they'll do is they'll eventually open up that second entrance so that it'll allow users in. So that was part of the condition of the football pitch. So it would be nice to do belts and braces to make it a condition of this application so that it doesn't allow that, to maintain that privacy.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions, Councillor Murphy? No. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Murphy, I'm a bit confused. Are you for this application or against? Speaking for it or against it? Because some of the things you've said are for the application, and some of the things you've said against the application. So I'm not, just as a first question, I'm not sure where your stance is on this. Are you for the application or against?
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I'm not against the application when it comes to the expansion. If it comes to education, I just think we could do more to sort out some of the highways issues. You'll have noticed in my spiel that I have not mentioned at all about the buildings, the extra footfall. It's about the highways issues. It's the highways issues. I've got a bee in my bonnet, and I'm speaking for the residents as well. If that meant you were backing me in a corner and saying, come on Dave, what's your stance on this? I would be against it. But if you get that right and you address the concerns, then I'm not jumping up and down about it, but I would be happier.
Yeah, just another question. I mean, there's according to the paperwork, there's 560 extra pupils going to be attending the school. Obviously, they need to get to and fro school. There's already a major issue at Rochdale Road entrance, which you can accept as a local councillor for the area. Wouldn't this entrance actually help to alleviate some of the problem already that existing, that the residents suffer at Rochdale Road end? Wouldn't this entrance actually help that situation?
Thank you. I've already acknowledged that the opening up of a second entrance would be the way forward. You've already got a bottleneck at Rochdale Road, so that would, I would be making even more noise if that didn't have a second entrance. What I'm trying to do is make the best of a bad situation for the residents round that entrance, because I don't believe this application does that at the moment. So that is my stance when it comes to the question that you've asked.
Okay, thanks. No more questions? We'll move to the debate. You've heard what Councillor Murphy's had to say. It is difficult to go against the actual application, but Councillor Murphy is absolutely right to speak as he has. It's a situation that affects all of us around schools, and any attempt to mitigate it has to be done. Councillor Hudson.
Mr Chairman, this is what I said at the last meeting, that we need to be thinking of planning policies that affect schools throughout the metropolitan area, rather than keep talking about Chadderton, where the local councillor comes and gets everybody on his side. And then I signalled Crompton as one of the places, as I did Upper Mill, where we allowed lights and different things to come into it. I voted against the planning. I'll be honest, I said, to save any of you looking up, I voted against Crompton having this extra facility because I knew it would affect the people in those bungalows and their living conditions would be terrible, and they still are. So, but I think that's gone now, and we're trying to sort out after the oysters bolted, Mr Chairman. And I think all we've got to look at is whether this planning application is suitable for the school. I agree with you, and I've been fighting, shall I say, alone for a long time, the fact that every area in the metropolitan borough should be treated the same and respectful to residents before we make these decisions. But we've already made it and we've lived with it, and like you say, I understand where Councillor Murphy's coming from. It's a difficult one, this. We have it at Saddleworth, we have it all over the place. But if we're a small minority, we can't get it altered. But we should be thinking about planning, about the effects and the infrastructure on things before we vote for it. And that's the answer, Councillor Murphy. But I think the answer is, you said it in your opening bit, I think we're obliged because there's no planning considerations that stops us giving them this alteration to the school, unfortunately. But I do understand where you're coming from because that has been around for a long time.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. I think we need to heed what Councillor Murphy said about this second entrance, and I think we need to get that into the conditions somehow. I think that I've been advised the best way to do that is via a parking management plan from the school, something that isn't prescriptive, but it's there and could be developed, as you said, over a 5-year period. So I'm happy to propose that that goes in, if everybody's okay with that. Yeah, okay. And so one of the problems we have here, I was astonished to hear, Councillor Murphy, that we've got students coming from Wigan and all over the place there. I mean, there's nothing we can do as a planning committee to do that. I think the governors need to get a grip of that. But that's another issue, isn't it? With academy-type schools, the council are losing control over how they work, and they run more as businesses than educational. Anyway, that's for another day and another debate. So, yes, we will condition that within a parking management plan. Right. Yeah, okay. Just being advised there that we could also do something about the boundary of the two houses that go up there. We could condition how... Graham, do you want to just explain that to Councillor?
Yeah, within the report at condition 13, we have got a requirement for boundary treatments around the site. It doesn't specifically deal with that particular area of the site, but we acknowledge your comments and the concerns, obviously, of those residents. So whilst we're dealing with the school in terms of discharging that condition, we will be looking carefully at those proposals and liaise with those neighbours on either side to make sure that we can try and get a scheme that does the best for them to mitigate any noise and so forth. Okay, with that in mind, if there's any more comments, Councillor Hartness?
Yes, the proposal says for an extra 44 spaces. Now, I've just had a look at, on the basis of what they had there before, and it's about a 50% increase roughly in the size of the school. So you'd be looking at, you expect about another 60 odd spaces really, rather than 44. And bearing in mind that currently it's not adequate, and it looks like there's some space there. Could we not have in there that they sort of provide some more parking spaces, because it doesn't seem like it's adequate for the scheme.
There's 44 spaces, including the disabled bays, on Rochdale Road car park, and then there's a 30 on Grampian Way as well. So total is. So is that satisfy? Is that answer the? Thank you.
Okay, unless there's anything else, I'll take a vote on it. We're going to include those conditions and the additional treatment that we'll put up the side. So all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Murphy, and you've done well by your residents, I think, tonight. Okay, I don't know whether there's anybody here from Crompton House who came to listen to this. If there is, it doesn't look like it. So what we'll do now, we'll just rearrange the planning officers and we'll take the next item, which is item number 11, pages 49 to 86, land at Knowles Lane. We have 3 speakers, and I'll just remind you that the speakers for and against have 3 minutes, and we'll remind them when there's 30 seconds left, after which there may be questions from the committee members. The Ward Council isn't limited to 3 minutes, but it is at the Chair's discretion how long he actually speaks, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Okay, before we start, it's an important application this. It's a big application, and I'm going to ask Steve Irving here. Oh, is it Graham? It's Graham. Graham's going to introduce it to us. Graham, if you can be as clear as you can and try and keep the technical terms out and explain. The members will have read this. I know I've read it backwards and forwards three or four times. But for the benefit of people who don't have technical planning knowledge, if you could keep it as clear as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Graham Moore. I'm the planning officer who dealt with the application. On my left, I have Steve Irvine, who's the head of planning and infrastructure. And on my right, we have here Wendy Moorhouse, who is the highways engineer who deals with applications on our behalf. We've got this application here, PA 340887/17, which is a hybrid plan application comprising of Part A, a full plan application for the development of a new link road between Knowles Lane and Ashbrook Road and associated works, and Part B, outline plan application for the development of up to 265 dwellings, open space and landscaping, with all matters reserved except for access. The site comprises an irregular shaped area of land on the south-eastern edge of Lees that is enclosed by existing development to the north, east and west, with highways infrastructure, Knowles Lane and Thornley Lane to the south. It is located approximately 2.95 kilometres to the east of Oldham town centre, and junction 22 of the M60 is located approximately 5.35 kilometres to the southwest of the site. The site itself has no other buildings on it. The site is approximately 15.79 hectares in size. The majority of the site comprises vacant, open grassland, which was historically used for agricultural purposes. The valley of Thornley Brook and land to the north is wooded and accessible to the public. A footpath runs alongside the brook. At the western boundary of the site, an area alongside Thornley Brook has been enclosed as garden space, though the public footpath still crosses through it to Hardshead Street. Pedestrian access to the site can be presently achieved by Ashbrook Road on the northern boundary. There is no formal vehicle access to the site, however agricultural vehicle access can be achieved via gate at Manor Farm and from Thornley Lane. Topographically, the site falls from south to north, becoming steeper as you approach Thornley Brook, which is this area at the top end. Thornley Brook itself is located with a shallow but steeply sided valley, generally contained by vegetation. A further unnamed brook flows south to the north, to the middle of the site. Land near to this brook is also subject to steeper topography. The source of a minor tributary which flows into the unnamed brook is located within the easternmost field of the site. St Agnes C.V. Primary School is located to the southern boundary of the site. And we also have pictures of Manor Farm and Flash Cottages. And this picture shows the wider site taken from Knowles Lane. Turn to the proposal. Part A is full permission for a new link road. This slide shows the cross-section of the road and its route in relation to the proposed new housing, coming from Ashbrook Road to the north and then opening up onto Knowles Lane to the south. Again, this slide shows the road in relation to the fall of the valley. This photo shows where the exit for the link road will be, approximately where the large group of trees on the left of the picture are. This picture shows the existing junction with Ashbrook Road and Oldham Road, where the link road will come out on. And this slide shown gives an indication of the design and layout of the culvert once it has been established and the proposed natural vegetation has matured. Turning to Part B, which is outline permission for 265 dwellings. The application site is shown on this indicative site plan, which, although not a formal representation of what will be built, gives an indication of the form and layout of the site should it be developed. Site section shown shows how the site will indicatively interact with the development edge to the north of the site with Thornley Brook. Again, the site section shown shows how the development will interact with the southern edge of the development site and Thornley Lane, with a large landscape buffer between them. The following 3 slides shows the site from one viewpoint. This one, showing it as it is existing. This one shows the site, which is this area here, as it will be in year 1 once the... Where's it gone? Showing it in the middle of the site. And this is what it would look like in year 15. The applicant has identified the following key benefits associated with the scheme. It will provide up to 265 new family dwellings, 60 affordable dwellings, an increased diversity in housing stock, a land transfer to St Agnes Church of England Primary School, 6.17 hectares of enhanced open space to be provided on-site, a £3.5 million investment into the link road. And to explain more about the link road, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Wendy Moorhouse.
So the provision of a link road between Lees Road and and Knowles Lane has been a long-term aspiration of the Council, and this planning application presents the opportunity of realising this ambition. We've got to make sure, though, that the design of the link road and the purpose of it is carefully considered and it's acceptable to the Council in terms of highway safety, its purpose and delivering benefits to the wider local highway network. So because we wanted to do this, a thorough assessment has been carried out. The transport assessment was submitted by the applicant, and that was assessed firstly by the local highway authority. Any discrepancies within it were considered and drawn to the applicant's attention and dealt with. The transport assessment was then independently assessed by Transport for Greater Manchester, again raising any discrepancies. The Council then commissioned Transport for Greater Manchester to carry out an additional assessment of the impact of the link road and the development, and also an additional modelling exercise. So normally we only consider the transport assessment that's submitted, but on this particular occasion we commissioned TFGM to carry out additional assessments, and this was carried out in 2 stages. So firstly, a preliminary strategic assessment of the potential transfer of traffic onto the link road was carried out. So in English, that is how much traffic will use the new link road if only the link road was provided. And then detailed micro-simulation modelling was undertaken to examine the impacts of the development traffic and the reassignment of other traffic along the link road. So in English again, we looked at what would happen to traffic if the road was provided as well as the development. And the results of this showed us that just by introducing the link road, there'd be a reduction in traffic turning right from Hartshead Street onto Lees Road. And also the addition of trips generated by the development increases the flow of traffic along the link road, which is what we expect, and that's what the link road is there to do. The addition of the link road causes a significant shift in the movement of traffic through the network. There will be a positive effect on the amount of traffic using the Hartshead Street High Street junction and a reduction in queuing on Lees Road High Street, leading to a reduction in journey times. Further benefits that will result from the scheme are improvements to the Lees Road Ashbrook Road junction pedestrian crossing, the pedestrian crossing facility across Ashbrook Road, and realignment of the carriageway and any improvements required to the pedestrian crossing on Lees Road. The existing traffic calming features on Lees New Road will be enhanced. Improvements will be made to pedestrian and cycle routes to and within the site, and improvements to directional signage in the area, which will divert users away from Hartshead Street and the continuation of Knowles Lane. So in conclusion, both TFGM and the local highway authority consider that the provision of a link road will not have an adverse impact on the local highway network to the detriment of highway safety. Instead, it will deliver a set of benefits and lead to further improvements on the existing local highway network.
Thank you, Wendy. Just returning to the key benefits, the applicant is stating that it would improve connectivity across Thornley Valley, it would improve drainage infrastructure, it would create 150 construction jobs, and it would create an exemplar scheme via the proposed design framework on an allocated housing site that will ensure the council and the public are able to influence the form of development that is eventually built on the site, and also that the site is not at risk of flooding. Furthermore, the applicant considers that the following economic benefits can be demonstrated by the scheme. These include, for instance, an estimated extra 11.3 million extra in the Oldham economy, and the development of a new link road estimated to cost £3.5 million, which would also meet a local plan requirement. Additionally, the applicant considers that the following social benefits would also occur should permission be granted. This includes the creation of 265 dwellings, 60 affordable dwellings, and the gift of land to the adjacent primary school to allow it to expand in the future. Finally, the applicant considers that the following environmental benefits would also occur should permission be granted. In general, officers concur with the benefits outlined by the applicant. As officers, we would conclude that significant weight must be given in the decision-making process to these benefits. Turning to the negative impacts associated with the scheme, the applicants accept that the scheme will cause less than substantial harm to the heritage assets known as Manor Farm and Flash Cottages. Therefore, the key test is whether or not the public benefits of the scheme clearly outweigh the harm identified to the heritage assets. Secondly, the scheme will have a major, moderate adverse impact on the landscape as assessed by the Council's LVIA. Given the two matters combined, it is the responsibility of the applicant to clearly demonstrate that the public benefits of the scheme would outweigh the harm to both the heritage assets and the landscape. Turning to the plan and balance, there is no doubt that additional housing arising from the scheme would be a significant public benefit for the area. It would introduce much needed private and affordable housing for local people. It would boost the supply of housing in accordance with the National Planning Policy Framework, contributing up to 265 dwellings, of which 60 would be affordable. It would bring about additional housing choice and competition in the housing market. Additionally, the applicant has reached an agreement with the St Agnes Church of England Primary School in order to gift a portion of the site to the school for any future expansion of the school or for the creation of a playing field. As such, these benefits are given substantial weight in the plan and balance. The scheme would generate other economic and social benefits. It would create investment in the locality, increase spending in shops and services. It would result in jobs during the construction phase, and according to the applicant, results in a construction spend of around £37 million. The new homes bonus would bring additional resources to the council. It is acknowledged that the site is in a reasonably sustainable location within a range of shops, services, schools and other facilities near Lees. There are bus services available in the locality and at a greater distance a Metrolink station at Oldham. In all these respects, the scheme will comply with the economic and social dimensions of sustainability. Some environmental benefits would also occur. There is the potential for significant biodiversity enhancement through additional planting and provision of green infrastructure, as well as the provision of a large SUD scheme. This, coupled with the proposed landscape mitigation, means that there are substantial environmental benefits associated with the scheme. A substantial area of public open space is also proposed, and the potential improvements to biodiversity are significant and can be given positive weight in the plan and balance. Paragraph 196 of the National Planning Policy Framework requires the harm to the significance of heritage assets to be balanced against the public benefits of the scheme. In addition, paragraph 193 requires that when considering the impact of a proposed development on the significance of heritage assets, great weight should be given to their conservation. However, it is considered that the level of harm to heritage assets will be limited and should be placed at the lower end of the less than substantial spectrum. In this case, it is found that any harm to heritage assets will be outweighed by the scheme's public benefits. As a consequence, it is considered that the so-called tilted balance of paragraph 11 of the framework is not displaced in this instance. In this case, there are concerns in respect of the adverse effects on this area of landscape and loss of opal land. It is considered that the scheme would cause harm to the character and appearance of the area and specifically to this valued landscape. The key test in this regard is whether or not the harm to the valued landscape is outweighed by the benefits new housing brings on a part allocated site and the provision of a new link road. In conclusion, the Council needs to significantly boost the supply of housing. The requirement to significantly boost the supply of housing in the district, coupled with the fact that there have been very few major plan applications for housing submitted to and approved by the Council in the past 10 years in the Saddleworth West and Lees ward, attracts substantial weight in favour of granting permission for the proposal. Overall, given the significant economic and social benefits associated with the scheme and the positive weight that is given to the environmental benefits of the scheme, the fact that the site is part allocated for residential use and it will deliver a long-sought link road, it has no design, ecology, amenity, flood risk, drainage, highways or other impactions that would sustain a reason for refusal. Full plan permission is recommended to be granted for the link road and outline plan permission is recommended to be granted for the residential element of the application. Thank you, Chair.
Please, 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 please. Now, please, what you must understand is that the officers have done this in the full backing of UK planning law. This isn't an Oldham thing. This isn't something that's been made up. This is planning law of our government of the United Kingdom. This is not something that is being made up for the sake of it. This is they're doing their job exactly right. It's up to the whether it's right or wrong or indifferent. This is the law of our land. This is, however, we also have a planning committee that is here to listen to what the professional officers tell us and make a decision which we may or may not agree with. But what I don't like is people booing the officers. They're doing a job. They're doing a job and they're doing it exactly right. Whether we agree with them or not, they're doing the job properly. It's up for us as the committee now to agree or disagree with them, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to ask the first speaker to address the committee. No, you certainly can't. Can I? I'm not. Please, please. If there is no questions, there is no question. If anybody continues to talk, we will have them taken out. There is no question for the public. Thank you. Can I invite the first speaker to speak? Now then, are you comfortable there? So yes. What you need to do is just press the little button, you've got it. 3 minutes, we'll remind you in 30 seconds, and then we may want to ask you questions. Shadav, are you going to do the 30 seconds? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. We realise more homes are needed, but strongly feel that there are major issues with this development that would be detrimental to the community. The application involves developing open land despite previous planning inspectors describing the need to keep it free from development in the strongest possible terms, emphasising that it is imperative that the designated open land should remain open. The area, described as heavily and densely populated in previous council documentation, has since only become more developed. It is not appropriate to add a development of this size to this area. A previous planning inspector also described the land as a substantial area of attractive land, linked to the open countryside to the south. It serves to separate the extensive area of Groton to the east and the proposed housing to the west. Therefore, the land should remain protected open land. Opal should stay protected as a quiet area for residents to enjoy exercise and recreation in this heavily developed area. Playing is an important part of physical and mental health and well-being. The development would cause serious loss of amenity to the neighbourhood and would result in the merging of conurbations. The scale of this development and the construction of the road would result in the loss of visual amenity and would have a severe detrimental effect on the character of the neighbourhood. Opal should remain protected for all these reasons, especially considering the statements by the Council about this land and its importance to the area. Development should only be, if permitted, appropriate, small scale and does not affect the visual amenity. 265 houses and a major link road certainly does not adhere to any of these points. The area is home to an abundance of wildlife, and including protected species. Development would be detrimental to the wildlife as foraging and feeding ground would be removed. There would be serious environmental impact due to the significant increase in light, air and noise pollution for both residents and wildlife. The existing infrastructure already struggles to cope with education, transport and healthcare needs. Adding several hundred more people to this area will only produce additional strain on the already overstretched services. Schools are oversubscribed and the additional places that would be needed are not available locally, resulting in more travel to schools further away.
You have 30 seconds.
People who know this area have a serious safety concerns about the link road, including bringing more traffic near a primary school and creating a potentially dangerous staggered junction close to a narrow lane. It would also bring more traffic to Lees New Road, an area heavily populated with families. For all these reasons, this application should be rejected.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions? Right. Councillor Hodson.
I'd like to ask you, the officer said, and I was amazed, but it does say on page 55, so I know where he's got it from, about the Springhead and Lees area not having any buildings. Then well, I can only say that as a person that had been travelling through there and know it for the last 60 or 70 years, I feel it's had tremendous building, and you can walk on the rooftops from Groton to Lees now, and you couldn't before. So I'm asking you, do you think this is, the building has been sufficient in your area?
I think the cup is already full. We can't pour any more into this area. This is the last piece of open land that we have, and I think this is why we should not be building on this area.
Councillor Hartnett.
Thank you, Chairman. In the submission by the applicant, he said that opportunities for wildlife are going to increase and habitat enhancement measures. Now, loss of
Please,
open land.
Sorry, Councillor Hartnett.
I'm not quite.
Councillor Hartnett, sorry. I know it's very emotive, but please, could you not interject, because it is a very serious issue and we need to concentrate on what people are saying. Thanks. Councillor Hartnett.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where he's coming from on that, but could you perhaps tell us a bit about what's going to be lost in terms, what your view is in terms of the impact on the habitats and the wildlife and trees and that sort of thing?
The report officer states that mitigation by additional planting would not diminish the likely adverse visual impact from the various viewpoints. The scheme would have an adverse effect on the visual amenity from major to moderate to major significance, both on completion and beyond 15 years post-construction. The proposal is expected to have a high tangible effect on the wider greenbelt areas, as well as reducing the accessibility to open countryside and the potential diminution of the role of the green infrastructure corridor. The development will result in significant loss and fragmentation of the green infrastructure assets, namely Thornley wooded valleyed area and the open landscape, including Warmton undulating uplands. Both of these features are important to the physical integrity of the green infrastructure corridor, which is already significantly eroded by residential developments and the valleys. The road will bring a major destruction to the natural environment. The report states development has been found not to protect and conserve the local natural environment. The UDP Policy 21 stipulates that developments must extend or link the existing green corridors, as well as conserve and reinforce the positive aspects of the surrounding landscape. Landfilling this valley does not conserve the green corridor.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification. Did you mention in your presentation that previous development applications have been refused on this particular piece of land in the past by the inspectorate?
I'm not sure that there's been previous applications on this land. I don't know of anybody. I don't know of any.
Okay. Okay. Any more questions? We'll pick that up, Councillor Akhtar, we'll pick that up shortly. Any more questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I acknowledge that you accept that there is a need for houses in Oldham. And correct me if I'm wrong, did you say that you don't mind the development, but do you think a smaller development will be okay, but because it's a big development, you're objecting to it?
Well, we understand that some of this land was recognised for being suitable for development. However, the analysis which underpinned this allocation for housing is the same analysis which came to the conclusion that it is imperative that the opal land remains undeveloped and protected.
Okay, yeah, Councillor Gloucester.
Good evening. Can you just explain to me where this planning inspectorate came into the equation, because I really don't understand.
Right, I don't know. I don't understand the question.
You're talking about a planning inspector saying that the opal land should remain open.
This is from the council. This is from the, I think it was from the UDP from 2011. That this was stated it should be protected open land.
So that's the old unitary development plan.
It is, but we've not actually got anything new to work from yet. The local plan's still being developed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's. I'll ask the officers to clear that up. In fact, would you like to clear that up now, Steve?
Yeah. I might be able to help everyone here. I mean, the position was obviously when our local plan came forward, and you'll know our local plan was 2011. Previous to that, there was a public inquiry, obviously, the planning inspector looked into the matter, and obviously resulted in him saying that, A, the allocation, part of this site, as you know, is allocated, so there is a, in principle, exception that residential can go on part of this site. But on the other part of the site, the Opal site, he said, well, we need to protect that, and he set out a series of reasons to protect it. The problem with relying on that at the moment is a very simple one. Planning policy has changed since that time. Members will be aware that in 2012 the MPPF came out, and very recently this year MPPF 2 came out. Clearly indicates that there has been a change in policy. Why has there been a change in policy? All the members around this table will all be aware it's become increasingly important to produce more housing because we haven't been doing for some time. You've heard a lot of issues today around why people saying, well, there's no houses being produced and it's not actually happening. Here's the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter, in the last 4 years, completions in Saddleworth and Lees is, I'll just find the numbers for you, 30. 30 housing completions in that ward. Total number in the rest of the borough during that time, 1,515, i.e. 1.9% of the houses completed in Oldham over that last 4-year period has been produced in Saddleworth, West and Lees. That clearly shows that we are not producing a lot of houses in that. That in your report quite clearly says you must have members have some regard to that. You must put some weight to that, because we are clearly not producing a substantial number of housing. Whether you weigh that more importantly than some of the other issues is the matter for the members. But you must give weight to producing new housing for all the reasons that you all know around the housing crisis and us not producing enough houses in Oldham. And you have to balance that against some of the other concerns that you may or may not have. Hopefully that's helpful, Chair.
Thank you. Please. Please, we need to discuss what's in front of us. Are there any more questions to the lady? Thank you. Okay, thank you, that was excellent. Can I now ask the developer, or person speaking on behalf of the developer, Gary Lynch. Gary, again, you have 3 minutes. I'll remind you when you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members. I'm Gary Lynch, the Planning Manager at Russell Homes, and this is Greg Dixon, Planning Director at Bolton Millmore. We welcome the recommendation by officers to approve this hybrid planning application. Officers accept the clear and significant benefits of the scheme and the special circumstances that support development on Opal in deriving at their decision. I wish to take the opportunity to reinforce why planning permission should be granted. Number one, the Link Road. For some 25 years, the Link Road has been a council aspiration, with it forming part of the council's adopted development plans. And in June 2017, council committed to utilising this land for the purpose of delivering the Link Road with a formal resolution to designate land for highway use. We are to deliver this £3.5 million Link Road, which will address a historic bottleneck in the local road network to alleviate congestion and improve highway safety. Number two, transfer of land to St Agnes Primary School. We have committed to transfer the land to the school, providing them with the opportunity for future expansion, as well as providing additional outdoor sports space for pupils. School representatives state that this provides a fantastic opportunity to enhance the quality of education care for children and achieve a long-standing ambition to become a single-form entry school. In addition, we are providing a new footpath between Knowles Lane and the school, set back from the roads to improve pedestrian safety. Number three, delivering high-quality homes that meet need. Over half the site area forms part of an existing housing allocation in the council's adopted plan. The council accepts that there is not enough brownfield land or existing housing sites to meet its housing requirements. The development will help the council achieve these in an area that is under-delivered. We are proposing a very high-quality family home scheme, including 60 affordable homes, therefore meeting local housing needs, and this position has been further emphasised by the many inquiries from the local community expressing an interest in purchasing future housing here. Number four, enhanced ecology and landscape. A third of the site has been retained and enhanced as public open space and landscaping, with a significant net increase in tree planting. In consultation with the Environment Agency, Natural England and Greater Manchester Ecology Unit, they have agreed a management strategy that will provide new and enhanced habitat. Number five, there are no objections to proposed developments from any statutory consultees. In summary, we achieve the council's aspiration of the Link Road at no cost to the public purse. We are transferring land to the school for their expansion. We are an award-winning house builder, delivering very high-quality family homes and affordable homes to meet local need and housing targets. We are providing bus stops, traffic calming and financial contributions towards highway improvements. We are delivering significant ecological landscape benefits in line with councillors, advisors and consultees. There are no grounds for refusal and the benefits clearly outweigh the effects. We kindly request that this application be approved in line with your office's recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Sorry, Councillor Hudson and Councillor Hartnett again.
I'd just like to ask the gentleman, I thought that was very good. If I were selling something, that you know, that was great. But I just want to ask you this. I know the original thing that went through, and it wasn't the size of this. And it's all right, you said, look, anywhere where you can build houses, you'll attract people of plan to buy them, because I accept that. But I want to ask you, do you seriously think that you'll be improving the district when all these people seriously don't think? So I can't understand why you would do it. I can understand, because it's profit. I mean, that's what you sell it for. But I want to ask.
Sorry, please.
Will you
Councillor
be
Hudson.
serious?
Sorry, Councillor
Can I
Hudson.
ask you?
Please, sorry. Can you please not do that? I know. Again, I said it's very emotional what we're discussing here, but we need to hear what the members are saying, and it is a distraction. That. Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Apologies. Please continue.
Sorry, no, it's all right. I was going to ask him. I'm going to ask if you. When you said that the plan was always that, well, I go back a long time, and most of them are dead. I would have asked them that decided, but they've nearly all died, the councillors. So I'm saying, from what I remember, it wasn't half this size. And even then, it was contentious to put a road that would create more problems than it would solve. So I'm asking you now to say whether you honestly think this will be in the interest, when you built them and moved away, will we still have a problem?
I'd like to just begin. We are doing this because we are a quality outfit. We are an award-winning house builder.
Sorry, please don't do that. It's not for... Please don't do it. And what I'll adjourn the meeting, because we need to concentrate on what's being said. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
We are an award-winning house builder. We develop on brownfield sites. We develop on greenfield sites. We are responding to a local need here. We're responding to an aspiration that has been reaffirmed tonight by your offices, that this is a council aspiration to deliver a link road. I'll pass you on to my colleague who can explain further about some of the other benefits of the scheme.
Sorry, only one speaker allowed. Sorry.
If I could ask my colleague, when we asked, we were told we could have both.
I gave instructions that there's one speaker only, sorry. And anyway, you've had your speech. You've done your preliminary speech now, so you're into questions, aren't you?
I understand the answer, Chairman.
I've no problem you asking them and you answering, but we need to keep one speaker. Has the question been answered, Councillor Hudson?
Yes, it's asked to me.
Councillor Hartness, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned in your speech about the ecological benefits, and in the 2017 consultation, there was talk of loss of bats, foxes, badgers and 20 species of birds. The Environment Agency were opposed to it because of the loss of amber-listed species. So I'd like you to tell me about what these ecological benefits are, and also could you define what you mean by 60 affordable dwellings?
In terms of the ecology point, we've worked closely with the Environment Agency, Greater Manchester Ecology Unit and Natural England. The surveys that have come back have said that from a legally protected species, there is no detriment. What we have done with those consultees, who are independent advisors to the authority, is include additional surveys, and we've put forward mitigation, which they say outweighs any harm. The mitigation includes additional surveys to the watercourse, show that from a chemical analysis testing point of view, water flow point of view, that the biodiversity in the species was limited. There was no kingfishers, no otters, no water voles, no special plantain, but the microinvertebrates in the water was of a common species. We have identified additional habitat creation, including a berm, which effectively is a water meadow, and this has come from those discussions with those consultees. We're providing weaved barriers to dogs to the watercourse on the request. We're providing a net increase in trees, 600 trees in total. We are providing bat and bird boxes. We're providing new planting, seed and fruit bearing for bees, for birds. Providing sustainable urban drainage through the site, including swales, which promotes foraging, breeding of birds, mammals. So there is a number of ecological habitat which the Greater Manchester Ecology Unit, as the independent advisors, support. Additionally, they include buffers around the edge of the site, including 30-metre buffers of meadow grassland. And over a third of the site is protected open space, which we are enhancing and protecting.
I think I've got to, please, please don't have me keep asking people not to interrupt us. We will have to stop the meeting. We don't want to do that. I think I've got Councillor Gloucester, you had a question. Councillor Kumar has a question. Councillor Gloucester.
There's a lot of percentages in this paperwork. So I'm just wondering how much of the Opal land is actually being covered by this development?
Can I concur with my colleague?
No problem you taking an answer.
Can I take an answer? That's fine. %50% of the Opal is retained.
Can I ask the officers to confirm the percentage of land that is already designated as housing and the percentage of land that is Opal and the percentage of Opal land that would be taken up if this application was granted?
Yeah, I can't answer the last one, Chair, but I think it might be useful for the members just to understand that 52% of the land is a housing allocation, i.e. that there's a principle of saying that that land is acceptable for that. 48% of the site is Opal land. I'm afraid I don't have the figure of the total coverage on that, so I have to take the applicant on that.
Okay. Councillor Gloucester, does that answer your question, or do you need to come back on that?
I don't think it gives me the answer that I'm looking for, but I don't actually think that's available, is it?
Unfortunately, it isn't. But it is a fact that 52% of the land is designated, and 48% I think is well, I know, is Opal land, which is it's roughly half, isn't it? Yeah. Councillor Kumar.
I was a bit glad when you mentioned water in your last statement, last answer. Are you aware that this land is subject to flooding?
We've undertaken extensive flood risk and drainage surveys. There is no flooding on the site. Where the flooding is, there's a flood zone 2 and flood zone 3 on the brook itself. And I think that has been reiterated again in terms of independent advice. There is no flood risk from this development on the development itself or elsewhere. So the development does not cause flood risk anywhere else. And with discussions with the Environment Agency, whose jurisdiction is the watercourse, they've informed the technical design for the culvert to ensure that it's built to its maximum capacity, so there's no risk of flooding along the watercourse or on the site.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the affordable dwellings that you mentioned, which are going to be 60 in total, is that going to be social housing, or is it going to be at a reduced price based on the full price? If reduced price, then by what percentage?
We would work with housing officers in terms of the determination of that, but it would effectively be affordable rent, shared ownership and right to buy, but it would be the authority dictating the requirements to us.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hudson wants a question, but I'll go on, Councillor.
Affordable housing is only affordable if it's social housing, because there's no affordable housing in Saddleworth, because when you've paid for the land and built the thing, you'll have to charge the going rate, and folk won't be able to afford it, local people. So I'm saying, unless you have a deal with social housing, and now the Prime Minister has released metropolitan boroughs to go into social housing, I'm saying you won't get 60 affordable housing. What do you say to that?
We work closely. We've got a strong rapport with many housing associations across the North West. There is a real need from housing associations to deliver this type of housing. We would work closely with them to deliver it, and it actually forms part of the Section 106 requirements for us to deliver that type of housing. So the application is dependent on us delivering that type of housing. As part of the next phase, the reserve matters stage, if we did secure planning tonight, then the next stage would be to prepare a detailed reserve matters, layouts, etc. And as part of that, we would be providing details on the housing association, management companies, the types and tenure of that affordable housing, and plots showing exactly where those units would be based.
Okay,
I've worked closely with them for 40 years, but I've never got the satisfactory answer, so I wish you luck.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. I've got two questions for you. The first one with regards to the flooding. You said there's no flood risk. I've actually got a government site on here that shows all along the river there's a high flood risk and a medium around it. Now, you said you can culvert that. Well, where will all that water go when it enters the culvert? Is somebody else going to have to deal with the flood water?
No, not at all. What with the culvert, we've had to undertake quite detailed modelling of the water course itself, and that takes into consideration worst case scenarios in terms of the flood year event, and that's governed and dictated to us by the Environment Agency. So we've had to go to the Environment Agency with a model detail, and they effectively sign off and say, yeah, we support that. They then have informed the technical design for the culvert to make sure that the specifications of the culvert would not create a flood risk hazard or a blockage of sorts to the watercourse. Yeah, I think that a good point as well is there's already culverts along the watercourse, so it's been demonstrated that it can work. So to the north and south of the site, there are culverts. I think the other point as well that's worth bearing in mind is, as part of the process in line with national policy on drainage guidance and so on, the existing site as it is, any water that hits the ground and flows off is referred to as greenfield flow rates. We have to maintain those flow rates. So the sustainable urban drainage systems that I referred to before for ecological enhancements, etc., that they also provide a key attenuation strategy. So effectively the water is retained within those swales. There will also be attenuation ponds on site, and that effectively holds the water and effectively then trickles out into the watercourse at those same greenfield rates. So we don't increase the flow of water from the site into the watercourse. And again, that has to be approved by the Environment Agency. The Environment Agency have been clear to say they have no objections to this scheme on flood risk grounds.
Okay. Secondly, we know that a lot of this land is allocated housing, so why have you decided to apply to develop the whole site rather than that which could be developed?
We have no choice. The reason for that is on viability grounds. The link road costs £3.5 million. To deliver the link road, we have to go, we effectively need more land to deliver it. The council's original 232 units that were allocated as part of the housing allocation, the only way we'll be able to build those out is at a density of roughly about 60 units per hectare. Now, currently in the local area, you're looking about to the south of the area, about 25 units per hectare. Maybe with the terrace streets up, 30, 35 units. So effectively, what we would have to create is a town centre development or a city centre, 5-6 stories tall development with no family housing. So we wouldn't be achieving the type of housing that is required in the area. There would be no affordable housing. There wouldn't be any provision for the primary school. There would also be a significant...
I think you understand. It's economic reasons. It's
No,
viability of the site.
there's a design context to it as well.
Okay.
Where the heritage grounds, where you've got where you've got the list of buildings, if we were to design a scheme in terms of that scale and massing, it wouldn't work. It would not be contextual to the area in terms of the character. It would also have a far bearing impact on the list of buildings and the wider landscape. So it's important that we create two-storey type family homes, not six-storey apartments that don't achieve it for families and the like.
Are there any more questions? No. Okay. Okay, Councillor Hewitt, it's your turn. You're not limited to 3 minutes, but in the interests of everybody, will you keep it as concise as possible, please?
Thank you, Chair. Certainly I will. As a ward councillor, I oppose this application and speak on behalf of the residents of Saddleworth, Western Lees. Many residents who have wanted to attend this very important meeting tonight and had to rearrange other commitments have been unable to, as the date displayed on the planning portal was the 21st and then changed to the 14th with a week's notice. Many residents who objected to the planning application have not even received letters notifying them of this meeting. The area in question has previously been described in council documentation as heavily and densely populated. In fact, on the council's website describing Saddleworth Western Lees district, it states that the western part of the district, which includes Lees, Groton and Springhead, is more heavily populated. It does not make sense to allow a development of this size in an already heavily developed and populated area. As a councillor of this ward, I am all too well aware of the problems residents experience when trying to get a doctor's appointment without waiting for weeks. Developments of this size would add several hundred extra residents who would how would healthcare needs be met there? The development would require additional school places, and yet there are none available at present. How would this need be met? The developers are going to give some land to St Agnes School without the funds for any expansion. This was not going to alleviate any of the problems. Families in the area will find themselves having to travel to schools further afield, bringing more traffic and congestion to our already busy and polluted roads. The claims that 60 affordable houses will be provided cannot be guaranteed. The council should be taking action to radically increase brownfield developments and to bring back life to abandoned sites. That means high quality housing for families in town centres, breathing new life back into our high streets and increasing density of our housing around the transport hubs to build homes that people want to live in. We should not be relinquishing green areas for development. Using OMBC figures for the housing land requirement, 289 dwellings per annum, the worst case scenario is that there is a 5.1 year supply of housing land. Although, using the proposed requirement derived from the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, a 5-year supply cannot be demonstrated. But the 2016 figures were put forward for consultation and have not been confirmed. Indeed, Andy Burnham has written to government asking for clarification about the national population and household projections because of the implications for the requirements in Greater Manchester and the implications for plan making. The 2016 figures, therefore, do not provide any sensible basis to make decisions. The Bolton appeal decision referred to in the committee report is dated April 2016, when the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework figures were current. Irrespective, a more recent decision in Bolton in June 2018 refused permission for housing, notwithstanding an acknowledgement that there was less than a 5-year housing supply. Another recent case where an appeal was rejected in Salford is based on the value of open space and the fact that the local community will be worse, not better off, as a consequence of the development. With regard to the new national standard methodology, there is uncertainty about the figures that should be employed because recent household projections indicate a lower requirement than previously, and this still needs debating. We understand that 52% of the land has been recognised as being suitable for development, but 48% of the land in question is open, protected open land. This development would contravene Policy 22 of the local plan and would have significant impact on the openness, distinctiveness and visual amenity of the area. Comments made by the RUDP inspector in 2011 supported the importance of open land, stating that it was imperative that this land stays open. Now, I just thought I'd check what the dictionary meaning for imperative was, and it means it's vitally important, of vital importance, all important, vital, crucial, extremely important, and urgent. So, why is this being ignored? Nowhere in the officer's planning report are reasons for the inspector's views on the need to keep the Opal land free from development analysed. The landscape section of the report considers the value of Opal land and the wider application site in terms of the quality of the landscape. However, the inspector explained that it was essential that Opal land should be kept free from development in order to preserve the separation between settlements. The inspector refers to the role of the site separating the extensive suburbanised area of Groton to the east and the proposed housing areas to the west. The inspector then went on in his report to say that it was imperative, do I go on again and explain what it means? Not a word often used by planning inspectors that the Opal remains open. Nowhere in the officer's report does it address the reasons why a previous inspector considered it imperative that the site should remain open. The whole focus in the report is on the intrinsic quality of the site as landscape. The inspector was concerned with the function of Opal in separating settlements to prevent urban sprawl. Groton, Springhead and Lees and Hults are very different areas and should have open land to keep them separate. Lees, for example, dates back to the 14th century where farming was the main industry of this rural area, with locals supplementing their incomes by handling weaving in the domestic system. As at the beginning of the 19th century, Lees had obtained a reputation for its mineral springs. Lees expanded into a mill town in the late 19th century on the back of neighbouring Oldham's booming cotton spinning. Springhead neighbours Lees and was named due to the freshwater springs. Springhead once formed its own urban district within the West Riding of Yorkshire. Springhead Infant and Nursery School and Knowsley Junior School that serve the area are oversubscribed and use porta cabins for classrooms. Allowing these areas will remove the historic identity of both Lees and Springhead and joining up separate conurbations that have no right to be linked. The planning report states that there have only been 3 major applications submitted in Saddleworth West and Lees in the last 10 years. But why should this already heavily developed area be targeted for such a huge development with the strain it will bring to the infrastructure? Although major development may not have taken place in the last 10 years, since part of this land was allocated for housing, there have been major developments in Lees, Groton and Springhead, which have added to the population and therefore brought additional strain to services, leading to the daily problems faced by residents today. I suggest, therefore, given previous views of the Council, that the area is heavily and densely developed and that the area has had more than its fair share of development and should now not be added to on this scale. Just a quick property search on Rightmove, a 3-mile radius, shows that currently there's 666 houses for sale. Many houses have been for sale for long periods of time. The economic benefits of this scheme are overstated by the applicant. For example, they claim that it will bring £11.3 million extra into the Oldham economy by prospective residents. It simply can't be the case that all these residents will be new to the borough. Many will be existing residents of Oldham, merely moving within the borough. While considering the annual council tax contributions, it is also important to consider the long-term costs associated with maintaining the new road, retaining walls and the culvert once the development is completed. They also list the development of a link road as a benefit, stating that it meets a local plan requirement and is a long-standing aspiration of the council. The planning report in reference to the road states that the planning application now presents an opportunity of realising this ambition. I want to know whose ambition it actually is. As ward councillors, we have been unable to find any answers to who wants this road and why. This is outdated. Building a link road was first thought up decades ago to run as a slip road off a poorly thought out Saddleworth bypass, which has been controversial and continuously refused over many decades. The only reason for this road is to allow the development. Residents of the area don't want the road. The people who live in the area and use the roads know the issues of congestion that this road will only serve to worsen. It seems strange that the road safety audit on behalf of Russell Holmes was carried out on a school holiday between the hours of 1900 and 1940 hours. This is not representative of normal traffic in the area. It is admitted in the planning documentation that the road will bring an increase in traffic along Lees New Road, which runs through Holt's Estate, an area of social housing heavily populated with families. Why would we want to increase traffic in this area where traffic calming measures have already had to be introduced? Why would we want to bring more traffic to a narrow lane with a school? There are already serious congestion and parking issues in the morning and afternoon as children are dropped off and picked up. The junction in Lees is described as dangerous by the applicant. Admittedly, it is a busy junction and often congested, but the traffic at this point is slow moving, whereas it was stated in the road safety that drivers could be expected to drive at inappropriate speeds due to the length of the new road. Surely this is more likely to lead to accidents. The audit made other worrying points, which were just dismissed by Russell Holmes. It points out significant level differences between the carriageway and the footpath and the adjacent embankment tow. They state that this could result in increased risk of pedestrians falling or vehicles lose control. They could travel down the embankment. In relation to traffic issues, rather than alleviate current issues of heavy traffic and congestion, this road will cause significant additional traffic, an extra 500 plus cars, but also bring more traffic to the area as it will be used as a cut-through to other locations. As the site currently serves as a green lung, helping to mitigate some of the effects of the vehicles' generated air pollution, it would be harmful to the health of existing residents to put more cars in this area. There is increasing evidence that vehicle-generated pollutants are causing health issues and people are suffering premature death as a result. The government is actively seeking to reduce emissions.
Councillor Hewitt, could I ask you to sum up, please? Right.
Conclusions are drawn in the transport assessment that the impact of the altered traffic flow as a result of Newlink Road will be negligible, and I believe otherwise. Due to little employment opportunity in the area for residents on this estate, the flow generated from the site would create a lot more traffic at peak times. The two public rights of way that are well used for exercise and recreational enjoyment will be affected. The planning report mitigates this, stating that they are incorporated into the layout of the site. How can walking through a large housing estate with cars and noise compared to the existing area of peace and quiet a green lung for the community? The applicant also claims that the character of the layouts on the western parcel are more urban in nature and in planning documents call it an ordinary view. To community, this is valued landscape and an irreplaceable area of beauty in context of its urban surroundings, an important escape from the busy roads and extensive development, and regarded as very important for physical exercise and providing mental well-being. The applicant has classified the site wrongly, considering the site to be the urban area, but officers' assertions based on work done by Camden Lonsdale state that the Opal site does fall within the Warmton undulating area, making the site rural. This would be a very sad loss for the community, with the views and the character of the area being irreversibly damaged, with the road acting as a concrete scar across the valley. The fact that this application would remove the green lung from Springhead and Lees and Groton community just leaves me shocked. The negative impact of listed buildings on the church and school on Knowles Lane is described as major adverse at year 15 of the proposal, and it is admitted that the development would change the landscape from rural to urban. This is just not acceptable in such a densely developed area, and the harm to the area outweighs other benefits. The planning report states that mitigation by adding planting would not diminish the likely adverse visual impacts of various viewpoints. The phrase used in the planning report that there would be extension to and enhancements of public open space is ludicrous. How can taking this open space for 265 houses and a major link road be extending our public space?
Councillor, I'm just going to give you 1 minute and then I'm going to ask you to finish. Thank you.
Do I get them seconds back? Volume in Oldham's Urban Forest Report 2017 shows that the tree density in Oldham is 33 trees per half acre, which is lower than the densities recorded in other high tree surveys. And the UK average for towns and cities is 58 trees per half acre. Oldham, therefore, is way below the average for the country. This application would involve removal of trees, and which is surely a move in the wrong direction, given the recognised environmental benefits that the trees bring in terms of helping to mitigate this climate change. The quote that a substantial area of public open space is proposed is laughable in the light of the fact that such a large area of open green space would be taken away from the community. This development, if allowed, would have adverse effects on the Warmton undulating uplands and a significant loss of green infrastructure. In terms of the wildlife in the area, much is included to show that the area is not home to various species, but little to deal with the protected species, including bats, badgers and owls. We should be protecting this land to preserve wildlife for future generations.
Councillor, your minute's up. So I'm going to have to ask you to...
Thank you, Chair.
It was a long speech, but thank you. Okay, there's an opportunity now for members to ask any questions the like of Councillor Hewitt. Do I have any questions? Councillor Ball.
Right. You know, I can see this application for 2 pieces of land. The bit of land that's got the planning permission and the bit of land that hasn't. I can't work out when the maps that we've been sent, which weren't very good anyway, which bit has the planning permission. Would that bit be able to be built on without this access road?
Thank you, Kath. Yes, certainly it would. It's 52% of the plot that has been proposed in this development. It doesn't need a link road to run all the way through. It just needs an access road, access and egress in and out. With no issues with the designated housing area. That's been there since 1959. You know, they're going to have to put a road in there so people can drive down and open the front door. We have not got a problem with that. We've got a problem with building this link road, destroying the valley and taking over the Opal.
Yeah. Any further questions? Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Thanks. Thank you very much for all the speakers and the questions. We'll move into the debate now, but before we do, I'm just going to ask the Head of Planning here to make a few comments and hopefully answer a few questions and queries that might have cropped up.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I have to do this. There's been a lot of information, I'm afraid, and a lot of statements that have been made that really haven't any basis on fact. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to read those out to you because my recommendation to you members is to dismiss quite a lot of some of the stuff you have because there is no factual evidence to support it. In particular, you've heard a lot about harm for wildlife. You will see in your report that quite clearly we have consulted the relevant statutory consultees and the position as outlined in your report clearly shows that there is no significant harm to any protected species or any form of ecology. That is a fact that you, therefore, any weight that you may give to that has to be dismissed based on the information that you have before you. You've heard a lot about the infrastructure and saying that there's no infrastructure for doctors, dentists, surgery. Again, there's no evidence to support that doctors are full. There's no evidence to support that there are school places that are short. That is a fact that you can, again, you cannot put any evidence on that. You've heard about the link road and heard about some of the issues that are there. What you have in contrary is you have 4 sets of highways engineers. Transport for Greater Manchester, the Unity Partnership, the applicant's highways engineers and our own highways engineer, all of who have looked at the scheme and have concluded, whilst they have different numbers and different number of vehicles going through, they've all concluded the same thing. They've concluded that there's no issues with the access, the road will not create substantial traffic issues, and that the junctions will be at an acceptable level. Again, you have 4 sets, I'll repeat, 4 sets of highways engineers saying that. If you put any weight on that, you would have to go against those 4. You know full well that and I say this to you often, so apologies for repeating it, but to get a highways refusal, you have to have a severe impact. You therefore have to prove it's severe and go against 4 sets of traffic engineers. In my opinion, that is a position that is not sustainable. We've heard some issues about the housing numbers. We've heard a lot of issues around the housing numbers. The fact of the matter is that I'm sure all the members are aware, because of the training that we do and the things that we talk about often, is that there is a need for housing. You must give weight to that. The idea that the Bolton position and the GMSF position means that we don't need housing is simply not the case. We know whichever set of new form coming forward, whether it be the lowest figures that were mentioned, the recent government figures around 591, or the figures that are in the GMSF or in the government's housing calculation of 685 or 716, it does not matter. The fact of the matter is we need a substantial increase in housing to go from our current target of 289. Therefore, we are going to have to grant some planning permissions, and you have to give weight to that. You cannot simply say that the numbers are wrong. They're not. However you put it, we have to put that particular position in. You've heard, again, I've mentioned the biodiversity. You've heard the position, it's been repeated over and over again about the opal land. It is a fact in your report that we quite clearly indicate that the opal land is an issue. The reason we indicate that that is an issue is that we think that there is some landscaping harm. The problem with that, as we put in the report, is that is the big negative in the scheme. The problem is that the benefits, as you can see on your screen, and we've talked about ad infinitum, so I won't repeat it, are significant. In particular, you've heard about the affordable housing. People have said, well, that can't be delivered. Well, you can't make a decision based on what you might think or what might happen. The applicant is prepared to enter into a Section 106 agreement. You can see that in your recommendation, that 60 affordable housings will be developed as part of that site. You have to take them at word on that. That is clearly a benefit in an area where affordable housing is not coming forward at a significant rate. Equally, the 260 houses that you have are coming forward, are coming forward in an area that I've already outlined is an area where there is not a large amount of completions. That information, you know as well as I do, every year we produce an annual monitoring report. Every year it outlines your housing position. It is a fact that Saddleworth Western Leeds is not producing a number of housing. You have to give that some. You have to give that some weight, because there are people out there, as we all know, who are in housing need. There are young people, older people, flourishing families across the range. We all know that there is a need for housing. You have to give that some weight. Continuing on, we've obviously heard some information about flood risk. Again, you've told, well, it's all guided to flood. The problem is that the experts, the Environment Agency and our local flood board, say the opposite. They say there are no flooding issues that are subject to it. Again, if to go against that, you would be in a position that you would be in significant issues. I'd like to bring the members' attention to the design bit. You will see that for the first time in Oldham, that the applicant here is entering into a design framework, a design code, which deliberately is setting out a high level of housing, housing design. That is the first time that's happened since I've been sitting here. I don't know whether it's the first that Steve is, but it's the first time where they are putting a substantial amount of effort into a design code, which will create a fantastic, in my opinion, development. You cannot dismiss that. Again, you must give that way.
Please, please, will you please stop interrupting? I will stop the meeting if I hear another outburst. We know you don't agree with the officer. The fact is, he's telling you how it is. Well, you might not like to hear it. We don't like to hear it, but we have to listen to this. It's not in our power to change the law. We can only abide by it. And shouting at us and jeering will not help anybody's case tonight. So please just try not to interrupt. Thanks.
I've only got 2 points, Chair, to just say. There's a point that the economic benefits are overstated. Your officers do not believe that. It is absolutely clear that for every new house that's ever developed, 4.2 jobs are created, whether direct or indirect. I've said that to you a million times. I've shown you the evidence where that is. Clearly, new housing does create significant economic and social benefits. Which brings me to nearly at the end of it, which is, someone said, why is the road required? Well, the road is required is very simple. Some people have said, well, you don't need the road for the road is there for the housing development. It's there, whichever site you choose. Councillor Ball made a very good point of saying, what would happen if it's the allocated site? What would happen if it's not? You still need the road to do that. The link road has to come forward. You've heard why the applicant has had to extend the site. He's had to extend it to build that road. They need the additional houses to do that. That's as simple as that. Their point about whether cramming on 230 houses in the site is an important one, because what you would have, they are right, you would have a very high density scheme there, which would be completely out of character with the surrounding areas. We often talk in this committee, as you know, Chair, about building houses that are suitable for the area. This site would do that. The final position is very straightforward. I think and this is my advice to the members, you don't have to listen to it as you well know. The situation here is that you have a list of significant benefits here, but you have, and it's quite clearly stated in your report, a significant harm. The significant harm is around the loss of opal and the consequential loss of landscaping. What you are doing here is you are balancing those positives of the scheme against that negative. That is the way that I would suggest you do that. You weigh that in your head and you make a decision based on that, because that is where that is ultimately where the crux is. The members will be aware that development management is not nowadays a position where you have to, if one policy is broken, it's a refusal. What you have to do is you weigh the balances, don't you? You weigh the positives, as you know, you weigh the negatives, and you come to a decision. And I would suggest strongly that that's what the members do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, before we start, I'm going to ask Alan to issue a warning to us regarding any decision that might be made this evening.
Yes, Chair. If you are minded to vote against the officer's recommendation, you need to do so for valid planning reasons only. And in the event of an appeal, you'll be required to produce evidence to substantiate those reasons for refusal, because if you don't, there's a possibility that the council could have costs awarded against us for unreasonable behaviour.
Yeah, thank you. And just, I mean, as members, we're going to find meetings like this, difficult meetings like this, more and more often, because it is a fact that the housing targets, GMSF are more than doubled in Oldham, and we have to find land for these houses. If we don't, the Secretary of State has told us they will remove our planning powers and just allow it. They have said that. They said that in March. They say it all the time. So we are in a very difficult situation here. However, members are here. There are issues around the opal land. Members need to weigh up the benefits the benefits that are given to us by the developer against our perceived benefits of retaining this open land. So, with that in mind, I'll open the debate. Councillor Hudson's got his hand up. Councillor Hudson. Councillor Kumar.
Mr. Chairman, I fully appreciate what you and the planning officer have said, because I always take into account this. And I don't think anyone in this room thinks it isn't a problem housing nationally from Land's End to John O'Groats. We know it is. But we've also got another thing, and that is the benefits and negatives on that board are what has been produced. I've heard so-called experts tell me over the years, and we've sometimes disagreed with them, Chairman, and we've gone to a government officer and they've come out in our favour. Recently it happened at 149 Manchester Road, Greenfield, where we were told all this, and I accept that they're doing their best and they've got to say it. But there's no wrong with local people bringing local events up to be taken into account. And I think it's vital, Chairman, and I don't want to use the word that my friend used and went over it several times, because I haven't got a dictionary and I don't read from things. My grandma said, if you read from things, you should either speak from ear or ear, and if you read them things, it's usually from back door. She meant arse, but she was trying to be, we had the vicar in at the time, and she was trying to be nice. So the problem is, we've also got to think about what happens when everything's been done and dusted and moved away. And we've been told over the years that things would be all right. I remember sitting here for years and being told that flooding won't be an issue, this won't be an issue, it'll bring the economy, Oldham will rise up. We've still got the same problems as we had 40 years ago going off that. So, Mr. Chairman, I've got to say to you, there's also a list of benefits and negatives that we feel are necessary to weigh up tonight. And I think that's essential, that every member on this committee weighs up their own negatives and their own benefits and votes according to what's best for the Metropolitan Borough and what's best for Saddleworth West and Lees, Chairman.
Councillor Kumar and then Councillor Gloucester.
Thank you. I've heard quite... I'm going to sort of declare that I travel down Lees New Road every day. My children, 2 children, one goes to Saddleworth School and the other one goes to Springhead Infants. So I travel down Lees New Road all the time. This link road would be very convenient for me to cut through there to get to them schools, but it's not the right thing to do. That's what I'll say. It's not about me, it's about the residents that live in the area that will be affected day in, day out.
Is that his question?
Sorry, he's not finished yet.
I've heard from the officers saying we don't know if dentists are full. My personal experience, I have a dentist on Lees Road. I ran late twice. I got chucked out. And the nearest dentist I could find to my house, which is on Queen's Road next to Alexandra Park, was Failsworth. So the dentists are full. The other thing we've got is, I'd go along with the figures of Saddleworth West and Lees as not being producing its build. To be honest with somebody who travels through it on a regular basis, it's because it's full. That's why it's not producing. The need for housing is agreed, and I know we need housing in Oldham, but the need is not at any cost. We're not going to do it at the cost of, or as far as I'm concerned, not going to do it at the cost of the Opal. And so I would declare that we move this a refusal.
Okay, before we move on from that, can I ask Councillor Gloucester to speak? And please, I know, can you please not do as much clapping and that? Again, no, please, it's very serious because we had an instance there, I thought Councillor Kumar had finished and he hadn't. We really need to concentrate on it. Councillor Gloucester, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I know this is only outline planning permission, but usually, even with outline, we do have a pictorial idea of what the development will look like, and I noticed that that isn't available on this. Is there a reason for that, or...?
Yeah, Councillor Gloucester, I think there's some. I think Graham was just going to bring up a drawing, but it's of course an indicative plan. You'll be aware that an outline application is exactly what it says it is. It is an outline. That's just an indicative layout which the applicant is required to produce. It gives an indication of what's there, but obviously that matter is, as you know, reserved for a later date. The layout is reserved for a later date, and as you heard from the applicant, if they were to go out, get permission tonight, what they would do is they would come back with a reserved matter, and you would be able to obviously look as part of the committee as at that reserved matters and decide whether you thought the layout was acceptable or not. So that is indicative, and it kind of gives you an indication of what's there or what's not. I don't know, Graham, if you've got anything to add on that. No.
Thank you. It was just that wasn't in our pack, so that was what confused me. Thank you.
Councillor Ball and Councillor Hartness.
Can I just ask, this Opal land, I've no problem with people building on the piece of land that's already got the permission for the housing, but it's the Opal land. Will this set a precedent for other Opal lands in the borough?
The answer to that is no. This is obviously done, as you know, Councillor, on a planning balance issue. You'll be aware that the issue here is that, like you say, as you've already correctly identified, half the site is allocated. They needed the extra for it. When we weighed the balance against that, you'll see quite clearly that we note that the loss of the Opal is a negative. You can quite clearly see that. But the list of benefits is so substantial that we felt that outweighed the balance. And in your report, you'll see we go through that in some length. Of course, it is for you to decide what that balance is. Well, like I said, when you're doing your weighing exercise, you have to put the weight on that. But to be blunt, when we looked at the benefits of that scheme of negatives, the reason why officers resulted in that was quite clearly that the benefits outweighed that. That didn't dismiss. You'll see in your report that we're quite clear that the loss of Opal is a negative, that's actually required. That, you know, that's actually quite clearly stated in the report. But it's for you to weigh that. All I can say is that the officers weighed the benefits, and they are substantial. There's not. I don't think this is one of those where there's a right and wrong. You know, a 100% right or 100% wrong answer. It is. You know, you have to wait. You have. You know, we've heard even the objectors have admitted that there are benefits of new housing, and it's for you to weigh that up and make a decision on which way you want to go.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Councillor Ali.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm obviously listening to the debate and listening to the officers, the benefits and the negatives. I mean, I live in Cheriton North, so I'm actually thinking, you know, if this was an area, I mean, I was living in, I think, you know, my concern is, I mean, this is you know, at the moment, this is an area where the residents go out, they go for walks. It's well, you know, it's for them. You know, they take their dogs out. And to lose that area, I mean, and then what are these people going to do? I mean, where else are they going to go? And certainly if it was being built in my area, I'd find that difficult to support it. So I think on that basis, I think I'll find that difficult to support this application, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Well, oh, sorry, Councillor Hartness, apologies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just want to come back on, Steve mentioned about school places and we had to disregard that. Now, from what I was told previously, I thought that Springhead, the Springhead schools were pretty much full. I know that Greenfield had an expansion quite recently, and that's not going to cover the demand which is required. Dobcross increased their numbers. And I know the school there, I think, is quite a small school. So I kind of wondered so the land that they're going to transfer over that, how many extra space if they found the money and built an expansion, how many extra spaces would that provide?
Oh, I think that's a good question. Clearly, the reason that the applicant did that, Councillor Hartness, is obvious that they wanted to show that there was directly on the doorstep of the scheme the potential to increase the school, whether it be for, as they said, for the school playing ground or actually for land. The numbers, I'm afraid, I can't give you, but it's a substantial piece of land. Obviously, as part of when we get to the reserve matters, we probably ask them to develop that, and that will be where it will be. And I think that's the point. It's clearly that's clearly why they've put that. I would assume that's why they put that in. It would make eminent sense to you. So this isn't an applicant who hasn't thought of that and tried to provide something for it. Whether you think that's right, that's obviously a matter for you. But that's why they did that. That's why it is. We, as you can see, counted that as a substantial benefit because it clearly dealt with the infrastructure point on that point.
Okay. Anybody want anything else in the debate? Okay, well, it had to be moved and I believe seconded for refusal against the officer's recommendation. Is that correct? Yes, of course. Is that correct? You moved it, didn't you? Yeah. Councillor Kumar moved. Councillor Ali second. Okay. Do you have any grounds for that particular view?
On visual amenity, loss of the Opal space.
It's probably worth having a think about that. And what we need... What we need to do, please, I will stop the meeting. I won't take this anymore. I will stop the meeting. As a reason for refusal, what we need to do is we need to use real planning reasons, and there is one. And that is with regards to the Opal land and the weight that members attribute to that against the benefits that are being shown to us by the developer. If members feel that the benefits of retaining the Opal land outweigh those of a building, that is a legitimate stance to take. That would be the best reason for refusal. There's also, we've been speaking about the numbers, housing allocations that council are coming up to. What's interesting, in a recent appeal in Salford, when the Secretary of State threw the appeal out, it actually mentions weight that members may give to emerging policies, in this case in Greater Manchester, and in this case of Salford, the GMSF. And one of the it's a three-stage waiting, but one of them is the extent to which there are unresolved objections to the emerging policy. Well, as we know, GMSF has been backwards and forwards like a tennis bat, and there are significant unresolved problems in that. So we can give that weight, in my opinion. But I would suggest that the main way to deal with this, to ensure that we are being given sound and reasonable reasons for refusal, is to say that we give... In fact, an inspector in 2011 said that this land must be retained. So I think we need to go on the Opal land, and we and the members give significant weight to the retention of the open land over the perceived benefits of the development. That would be a far better reason. Is that what you would like to do?
That's what I said, yeah.
Okay. Well, you've got to be absolutely precise in this. So, can I take a vote on that? All those in favour of refusal, with the reasons just given? Against refusal? Any abstentions? No. Okay. We need to go to the substantive, do we, Alan? Do we need to go to the... We don't need to vote on that anymore, do we? No. Fine. Okay. Yes, of course. This evening, this application has been refused. However, that may not be the end of the story. If there's an appeal, we now need members of this committee who will, well, a member of this committee to put themselves forward to defend the council's position in the event of an appeal. Now, as chair, I will certainly put myself forward, but if anybody else wishes to do that, they're more than welcome to do that. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We'll just take a short 5-minute break and then we'll move on. Okay, members, we've still got quite a few applications to deal with this evening, so if you could all take your seats and we'll start again in 1 minute. Okay, what we'll do now, we'll just go to the top of the agenda and run down. So we'll start at agenda item 6. They're all similar, these. 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 are all linked. And
Chair.
sorry?
Still contract tasks, return.
Oh, right, yeah. We'll just carry on. It's fine.
Right, thank you, Chair. This is an application relates to a site at Spring Head, which is off Ashes Lane and Station Street. It's a presently vacant site which got planning permission in outline back in 2015. And as you can see from the drawing that's currently up on the site, you can just about make out the various plots on this site. So when they got the approval in 2015, there was for a single scheme. However, since then, the applications have been coming forward as individual plots. Members might recall we had a similar circumstance at a recent committee for the Woodfield Centre, whereby as a scheme for 9 dwellings, it would have at the time required a Section 106 contribution towards public open space. But as they've come forward as individual applications, you wouldn't normally ask for that. But, as you can see, this is essentially one single site, and in our opinion, there is still a requirement for that payment. So this is the reason why these otherwise fairly small applications before committee, because there is a legal agreement. All the parties to this site have all come together, and we have agreed a contribution that they would make once permission is granted for this application. So there'll be a financial contribution of £22,500, which will be used for the walkway, which is, you can just see at the bottom end of the site that passes the site, so improvement works to that site. In terms of the applications themselves, you've got 5 individual applications. If I go through some of the pictures to it, so there's the site itself. If you see on the left-hand side, there are 3 pairs of semi-detached houses. These are essentially 2.5, 3-storey properties, and immediately to the north of that, just off the coloured in section, are 2 very similar properties that have previously been approved and are now built on the site. So there's even though this area is primarily 2-storey houses, there is a precedent for that in this particular location. So of the 5 applications that you've got, of those blocks, just confusingly, one of their applications relates to the block in the middle, second application relates to the 2 blocks on either side, and then the 3 later applications relate to the properties on the other side of that access road, which are obviously detached properties. So essentially it's the same issues for all of these applications. Just run through quickly the taller buildings. So these are the ones at the left-hand side of the site. So as you can see, it's 3-storey on the front, but with the up top storey within the dormers, and then there are roof lights on the rear of the site. In terms of the relationship with the external back, well, this is the access to the site. So this is coming in off Station Street. And the site boundary itself, so once you come into the site, which is just on your left-hand side, the boundary you can see there is onto an area of open space. So 2 of the properties will face onto that area. This area at the back of the site faces onto the backs of some gardens of properties. However, as you'll see in the report, the separation distances involved are at acceptable levels, and there is additional, quite tall screening provided from additional planting over the boundary. You can also see from that photograph the existing 3-storey properties that are at the back of the site. So as I say, there's a precedent for that design in this particular area. Oops, have we gone? Can you get me on the third one, Steve? Essentially, all these visuals are the same, apart from there's a couple more that show the boundaries on the right-hand side.
That one?
Are you on the same application? No, I need a different application. That one.
Just click on the button, click on that, yeah, and then just hit the slideshow from slideshow. Current page, current page, yeah, current page. That'll get you on the right.
I know you're all hoping this went through really quickly, but obviously I'm struggling with the technology. So we're back to the same site, and just on the opposite side of the site. So this boundary to the right-hand side backs onto a property on Station Street that has a very large garden area to it. So this one, you'll see, these are more traditional two-storey properties. So where they're closer to the houses, it's kept down. Again, the access to the site. And as you come round, this is the garden of the property. So just where you can see that gap is the application site itself, and this is the very large garden of that property. But again, as set out in the report, separation distances are within acceptable levels, and there is also, again, you can just about see it, there's a large coniferous hedge also on the site itself. In terms of the applications, we've had one objection in principle from a neighbour, and some of these applications do go back to 2016, and that was about traffic implications. It's members are fully aware of traffic implications of construction traffic coming in through the site itself, but I would reiterate the principle of 9 houses on this wider site has already been approved. Lastly, there's been an objection or comment received from the occupier of this particular property who was concerned about the hedges within the site, but actually the hedge is actually on their side of the boundary. So although under common law the applicant could cut back up to their boundary, there is some control over that continued screening into the site. So as I say, the recommendation is for all 5 of these applications to be approved with a resolution that we issue those decision notices once the payment for the off-site public open space has been received. Obviously, I've tried to do that fairly quickly to get through them, but if you've got any queries, obviously I'll answer those.
I just want to prove to the officers, they do sometimes, they will get my support on this. And if anybody went to see them, it would make perfect sense what the planning officer has just explained. It's perfectly acceptable, and I would move all of them.
I wish we could, but we can't. So we'll have to do them one at a time. Garth,
well, I'll move them one at a time then.
Okay. Garth, did you have something to add?
Yeah, very quickly. I'm happy to second that, but I just want to make a point about the cynicism of putting them in separately to try and avoid the payments, but well done to the officers for not falling for that one, and we're getting our due the reward. And obviously on that basis that we don't give permission until they pay up, then I'll second John's proposals.
Okay, well, I'll take that. So the first one, item number 6, we're all agreed in that? All in favour? Agreed. Okay, that's agreed. Item 7? Move it, Chairman. Seconded. All agreed? Yep. Item 8? Move it, Chairman. Second? Agreed. Item 9? Move it, Chairman. All seconded again? All agreed. And item 10? Seconded. All agreed. Thank you. Okay, with 2 quick ones, I'm just going to move these, unless anybody's anything want to add to it. Item number 13, GM Machinery, Barry Street. Unless anybody has anything they want to add, I'm going to move approval.
Second that.
Okay, can I have a vote on that? Garth? Yeah, Hazel? Yeah, okay, that's unanimous. You need to be quick. You need to be quick on this committee. Item 14, Kingfisher School. Again, this is all here because it's a council interest, council land. So, Okay, can I have a mover for that?
I'll move it.
Seconded by John. All those in favour? It's passed unanimously. Please note the appeals. We've won one, much to the officers' annoyance, I think, and we've lost one, much to everybody's annoyance. So, thank you, Kath. Yeah. Okay, I mean, the plans are all there on the web.